Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Preview Podcast. We are slightly delayed this week as I have been on my holidays and out of the continent, but Sunderland's players may feel very much the same way as we make the long trip to Plymouth Argyle. We just got to hope that there's going to be no jet lag for them at all. As always, though, we're here to preview the game. We have a podcast debutant in the shape of Ben from the Green and White podcast. I believe the time difference between Scotland and Plymouth is about 5 hours, Ben, but I hope you're all right. How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Hilariously, no one's going to see this, but for some reason, Ben has a filter on where his lips are bright purple. So throughout this, I feel like I'm speaking to, I don't know, a man with purple lips, but you can't see this. So this means nothing to anyone.
I have turned the filter off, but for some reason, it's left my mouth purple, like I've been drinking vodka and a blackcurrant all night. So yeah, it's a bit odd.
If I have a giggle throughout this, no one's going to know why, but now you all know, I suppose, in some way.
Not smile at all through the whole thing.
It's like the Joker. Plymouth Argyle, look, it's been a while since we last met in the playoff battle. 0-0, I think it wasn't like an Easter Monday. But we're meeting here back in the Championship. Obviously, we got promoted that year. You got promoted last year, but you're competing fairly well, if not brilliantly. You currently sit 19th, 4 wins, 4 draws, but you have lost 8. But how's the first third of the season gone in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, picked up 7 points out of the first 5 games, and I think everyone was really flying. Obviously, you've come off the back of promotion, beating that Ipswich team, who you have to admit in the second half of the season was, even if the results we sort of matched them stride for stride, the football they were playing was excellent. So to finish above them, and to keep winning, grinding out results was impressive. And there was obviously riding that wave all through the summer, great recruitment over the summer. So to then go out and get 7 points from the first 5 games, there was a lot of confidence. And then sort of like the middle third of the third, if you want to call it that, we've had some really duff results leading to the point where we had midweek against Millwall, followed by a Saturday at home and a Saturday at home against Swansea, where I don't want to say they were bad performances, but we really should have got something out of both games. Millwall was the stereotypical smash and grab, battered them for the first half, defended pretty well. We didn't really create too much, and then they got 2 goals with their only 2 opportunities really. One of which was a foul, but by that point in the game, the game was pretty much over. Swansea again 3-1. Swans fans will probably say we deserve to get something out of the game, although again you've got to take your chances. So at that point, that was then the international break, not this one, just gone, the previous, and the manager said that we've got to learn a few things about this league, and one of those was that tactical fouls are a big deal. I think the quality in this league is so much higher that the jeopardy involved in giving away chances is too high, too much to allow. So literally the following game after we were back against West Brom, 7 yellow cards. I think 5 of those at least were for technical fouls, breaking up play, but it did the job. And I think that game, I think we only had something like 0.35 expected goals, and West Brom was like 0.23. So it was just a case of, right, we're going to stop the rot. We're going to stop conceding goals. We're going to stop allowing, because the big issue was allowing balls through the way we play, leave the flanks open with the fullbacks pushing forward, and Jordan Houghton, the one hold, if we play him with just the one hold in pivot, hasn't really got the legs, the sort of like Adam Randall has, who often plays there with him, but has more license to go forward. So there's spaces everywhere basically. So the idea was, look, we're not going to concede in transition. And for that game, even though we could have got something from it on the day, it was just a case, I think, of from the management, look, we're just going to stop the rot, keep a clean sheet. And thereafter, even though we got the draw at West Brom, we won with Wednesday coming down, which is sort of, you'd expect to win that. But then it was loss away to Ipswich, draw at home to Borough, loss away to Leeds. But the open play XG we conceded in those games was pretty low, was much improved, even though we've, you can say we conceded 3 against Borough, 3 against Ipswich, and 2 against Leeds. There are quite a few extenuating circumstances in those games. So, we're doing really well offensively. There's been some problems at the back, and I think in the last sort of 5 games since the last international break, tried to address some of that, although there's some caveats involved. So, yeah, I think most fans would take, given the size of the budget, and being the first year up, anything above the relegation places will be success, and we can build on that. So maybe some of that early season optimism has been tempered, but realistically, I don't think anyone can complain if we finish sort of 20th. We're 19th now. I'd take 19th at the end of the season. My prediction was 17th, but that was kind of predicated on where I thought some of the other teams would be. And some of them have done a lot better than I thought. Birmingham went on a mad one recruiting, although they seem to be in free fall now. Cardiff, Bullock came in and it's done incredibly well for them. I thought they might struggle this year. So, around 19th, 20th, I'd happily take. And as opposed to coming out of the last international break where we were, having lost to Millwall and Swansea and thinking, we can't survive playing like this. We're actually coming out of this one quite optimistic that we can start putting some results together, having a bit more nous, being a bit more switched on and clever to the league. And to be honest, a lot of the players have said in interviews and things that it's just so much more intense. You're running an extra mile or two a game. And of course, it's the intensity of the run, and it's still sprints. It's not just you're covering extra ground, but you still have to be performing at your best, at your peak. So I think, like Finn Azaz, been a brilliant player, sort of coming on loan from Villa again. He said he's only just sort of got to the physicality of the league, just sort of feeling like he's able to compete all for the whole 90 minutes. Whereas last season we were one of the fittest teams in League One, and we were regularly getting late goals and running teams down at the end of the game. So there's a lot of I think the improvement in class and quality is quite stark a lot of the time. And I think now after the first third of the season, most Argyle fans are realising where we are, accepting it. It makes sense, and the fact that we're competing down there in the sort of the bottom half, we know what we've got to do now for the rest of the season for the next 2/3.
I wanted to ask you about the manager, obviously, because I remember when he got the job permanently, Ryan Lowe obviously went to Preston, where he's had a degree of success, I suppose, but Preston seemed to be like perma ninth. Although they might change that this season. He started quite well. But Ryan Lowe was really highly rated, did a good job with Plymouth, got the job in the Championship. And then you think, right, who they're going to bring in next? And at the time, you're in the playoffs and Stephen Schumacher comes in, which was that move where sometimes it works and most of the time, and I haven't got the stats for this, but it feels like you bring in the assistant or the first team coach and it goes drastically wrong and it changes within 8 months. But he got into he was almost into the playoffs the season we went up through the playoffs. And I remember the last game of the season, we're at Morecambe, and because you got hammered so much off MK Dons, no one was really worried because you were the ones that stayed out of it. MK Dons, I think, was 5-0 in the game. And you think maybe Schumacher's not the right guy, but fantastic season last season. You touched on Ipswich before, and we've seen how good of a side they are and the continuity they've had. You won the league ahead of them. You had a really good first full season, and as I said before, I feel like you're doing more than just competing in this league, and I do feel like you'll stay up. Stephen Schumacher has gone kind of under the radar, whereas maybe McKenna's getting spoken about because of where he's been at. But how good is Schumacher, and has it been a blessing in disguise that he got the job when Ryan Lowe left?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I hold my hands up and be honest, when he was appointed, sort of think, I don't know if this is just a panic. This is just kind of not spite to say, well, you're not taking your assistant with you. But, was it we see something in this guy, we'll give him a chance, as often is. It's sort of like a pseudo caretaker role, isn't it? They sort of know that they get a chance, and if they do all right. But as you say, you sort of fail to get into the playoffs, and then it's thanks, but, we're looking elsewhere. But I do think that I get the impression that there might have been those discussions behind the scenes already. I think Neil Dewsnip the director of football, is a very canny operator, in all aspects of the game. And I think that Shuey buys into the way Dewsnip wants to run the club, which is very much a data-driven system. It's not quite Moneyball, but it is very much sort of looking for the right players to fill the holes that we've got, so that we're maximizing what we're trying to do as a team. And he builds his philosophies around. Obviously, he has his own, his own input. It's not that he's a puppet to the director of football, but I think they all, Argyle, although got a very low budget, spend an awful lot of money on their backroom staff, getting the excellent investment in fitness trainers and analysis, data, etc. So I think that Shuey fits that bill. I think he's a very forward-thinking manager that way, and I think that none of us are expecting him to do as well as he did. I think that the director of football and those behind the scenes sort of recognise that about him. And there are times when, you know, the coaches are the brains behind the outfit. You know, sort of think Jurgen Klopp's early career, a lot of that has been accredited to his assistants, and although they've not necessarily gone on to great things themselves, I think you know, there's a lot of people who prefer to work in that role, don't like to be the main man just to get on with their job, but are actually very, very capable. The thing is, because he's only been it's his first job, and he's only been in the job for a couple of years. In many ways, he's learning on the spot. You know, he's got a great return from his 2 seasons, and just missing out in the playoffs and then going up with as champions. So this is his first real run at adversity, and it's easy to say he's a great manager because he's been getting results, but I think it's a completely different beast, dealing with the pressure of keeping a playoff run or a championship title run going, as opposed to the pressures of relegation and coming up against much bigger names, much bigger spotlights, much, you know, brighter lights to be analysed under. So, you know, we love him. To be honest, we think he's brilliant down here, and we're quite glad that he goes under the radar. You know, you'd think he's been managing for 10 years or more. You know, you think he's an established manager, but you forget sometimes in the way he conducts himself in the press conferences. And, you know, he started to this season do what he did last season a lot, which was getting his mid-game tactics and substitutions right. You know, really been able to read and influence a game, which I think is a mark of someone who understands football, understands the game, that they can react in a moment. So I think he's got everything to be a really top manager, and I think it is a lot to do with who the club are and the fact that he came up from an assistant. That kind of stigma that you were mentioning, that sort of keeps him below the radar, with, of course, McKenna flying high, coming from United and from Man United, and their consistency over the past sort of calendar year. Also, you know, when you've got someone to compare to, that also keeps someone under the radar. You know, if McKenna wasn't in the picture, would he be getting a more, you know, would he be the darling of the media, etc.? I don't know, but we're quite happy. Like the club is, we're always sort of flying under the radar, and quite happy with that sort of underdog, no one paying us attention kind of attitude. And I think Shuey gets that as well. He speaks to a lot of the supporters groups and that he goes and speaks to, and they all say that, you know, he gets us as a fan base. You know, I'm sure as Sunderland fans, you're very similar, that you're quite a unique set of circumstances in terms of your, you know, location. You've got a rivalry up there. You're a massive club, but, you know, and we've got that a very similar kind of attitude of wanting to, you know, to prove people wrong, to sort of prove who we are, and people tend to see us out of context. Or have us in a pigeonholed in a certain way. So Shuey gets that, I think. You know, he didn't have the career he maybe wanted as a player. He was, you know, a successful professional player, but, you know, he's getting now the chance to manage in a league he's never played in. And I think he's relishing that. I think he relishes the fact that there's not so much pressure on him. I think the board have sort of said to him, you have as much time as you need. You know, I suspect if we went down, he'd still keep his job. It would be part of a building process to come back up, establish ourselves, etc. So I think that helps him. So I think we've been blessed to get him, and he's also been blessed to get the situation he's walked into with a board that will take its time, see the bigger picture. So yeah, he's doing really well. He's really sort of like learning on the job, and I think that the second half of the season we'll see a better team because of just like I've discussed, you know, the adapting to the fitness levels, realizing the sort of the tactical fouls is one example, but lots of other different aspects of the game that need sort of adjustment. You know, he tried a different system this year because, you know, we went from the 3 at the back. We're now playing mostly a 4 at the back, although we've reverted back to the 3 at the back. But that's clearly been a reaction to, well, what's our strengths? You know, we need to maximize our strengths rather than trying to, you know, play the opposition at their game. We need to do what we need to do. And that's been proved in the way, you know, I'm sure we'll come on to the strengths of our team, etc. in a bit. But, you know, he's clearly adapted. He's thought about the situation, and he's, you know, he's got nous. He's not stuck in his ways. He's, you know, been willing to take a team that's won the league with 101 points and completely sort of mess with the formation and even some of his star players' positions to try and maximise what we're doing in the league above. So, you know, he's brave. He's not stuck in his ways. He's already learning, and I think that the first third of this season would have been a brilliant learning experience for him. It's a very steep learning curve, and we'll start seeing the benefit of that in the sort of the latter half of the season for sure.
I think when you look at your form over that first third of the season, one thing that sticks out abundantly, and you'll notice yourself, but Far better at home than you are away. Beat Norwich 6-2, Blackburn 3-0, Sheffield 3-0, Huddersfield 3-1 at the start of the season. But those results I mentioned first, the first three results have been a little bit more recent than maybe the first game of the season. But not only that, if you look at the goals scored at home, you're the second highest scoring team at home outside of, I think it's Leicester, which is massive, really, because you can score goals at home and now you can win games at home. But why are Plymouth stronger at home than they are away?
I think some of that is if you look at the last sort of away games we've played, they've been Leeds, Ipswich, West Brom, three of the top teams, but those performances, like I say, have been transformed from the early season results. I think at home, when teams come to us, they're more willing to play a more defensive style, and more even the big teams will respect the atmosphere and the reputation we have at home. Whereas, of course, the onus is on teams at home to come at us. We like to counter attack. I think we're something like we're in the top 3 for speed of transition from defense to attack. So, we love to counter attack, and one of the problems with that is with our system with the 4-3-3 is that when the fullbacks go forward, or the one midfielder who tends to sit Houghton in the middle, when we get caught, when we get lost, when we lose the ball in attack, especially because when you counter, you're catching them out of position, aren't you? Yeah, and so your tails are up. You think, and that you got your overloads, etc. But then when you've committed 6 people forward in transition, you're out of position and they're out of position, and all of a sudden we've got spaces at the back that are commonly exploited. And I think if you look at a lot of the goals that we've conceded away, you think about Preston. So we've won one of the goals. We won the ball back in the corner, but it's our winger. It's Morgan Whittaker who's in part of the wide right of the front 3. He's got the ball, tries playing the ball forward. The fullback has gone forward to give him space to move into and to provide a passing option. The pass goes awry, and then we're counted on. Morgan Whittaker's then got to act as fullback, and the centre backs expect him to cover across because there's a run of the far side, and stuff like that, where we're being a bit naive in our choices and in our distribution, maybe. And that's where the whole, it's very simplistic to reduce it to tactical fouling, but when you're playing with that system, where effectively you end up with 2 centre backs and the holding midfielder as your back line, so sort of maybe a narrow back 3 in effect. When you're attacking, when you're countering, it's very easy to exploit in this league with teams who've got brilliant wide men, and very expertly. I don't know about, but a lot of players will time their runs well. They're good at seeing where the space is, keeping on the blind side of defenders in transition, and arriving at the right time. So we've just been too open at the back, allowing too many. When we've coughed up possession, whether it's in the middle third or in our own third, allowing then the ball to be played into dangerous areas rather than just hacking a man down at the first opportunity and coughing up the set play. And that's our strength and our weakness when you're committing that many men forward. We've got 4 of the top 20 most productive ball carriers in the league. So we love to get the ball forward, run at defenders, and then you've got the 2-8 or 2-10, sort of like Izaz, Kundal, or Randall, as it was until recently. 2 of those then supporting. So you've got 5, maybe 6 men going forward constantly, but at least 5, and then the wing backs come up as well. So you really do isolate your rear guard, and if you're going to do that, you need to be able to munch people in transition. You need to be able to cut that off at least occasionally. It's okay to say we're going to score more than you as a tactic, but you need to be able to provide some resistance to allow cover to get back, and we haven't been doing that in the early part of the season, and that's demonstrated by the open play XG against us in those first few games, which has been much better despite conceding the number of goals we have conceded in the last 5 games. A lot of those have been from individual errors, or there's a penalty against Borough that, although it was saved, got them put in. So stuff like that's contributing, but our actual open play resistance at the back, or resilience rather, has been much improved. So I think that teams attack us away from home, we like to counter, and that exposes us too much. We're the architects of our own downfall, to answer the question you originally asked. And so now, although we're not sort of taking the foot off the gas, we still are countering away from home. There's that willingness or the awareness that if we need to like pull a shirt, hack a man down or whatever it might be if we get caught out, rather than letting them go, because in this league you get punished for those kind of, for allowing men through, that you get put away more often than not.
Looking at the players that are within your squad, obviously there's a few ones that stick out, but the main one that sticks out, which people will be wondering when I'm going to come on to it, is of course Bali Mumba. Seen him make his debut at 16, I think. Look, and it was a really dark time for Sunderland, but I think a lot of us in the early periods of League One thought he was going to be like the shining light, the player that could come through. I think he played for England at unders levels, and it never really happened. And there's the whole other podcast for maybe why it didn't happen for Sunderland, but it didn't happen. And he left it, I think it's almost 4 years ago now. Didn't really get a look in here, if I'm honest with you. Went to Norwich, did all right, and then ended up on loan at Plymouth, where he really seems like he's found a home. He definitely appears to be no longer a midfielder, which is what he started coming through at Sunderland as. But can you fill us in a little bit on, what Bali Mumba is, what we're going to face, and how he's thought about it at Plymouth? Because there seems that he's doing quite well.
Yeah, if you'd have said that we'd be able to get him back in the summer, most fans wouldn't have thought it possible, especially for what we ended up paying for him. I think around $1 million, and probably when sort of clauses are hit, slightly more. But a real bargain. He was, if you look at the different sort of like whoscored.com or FootMob or whatever you want to look at, his ratings are, the best in the team, along with Mike Cooper, our goalkeeper, for that season. And he I think because the rest of the team's been chipping in so much this year, he's been getting, I wouldn't say stick, but there's been some questions whether he could produce more. But in my eyes, he's one of the best players in the team every week. His movement is incredible. And what he does on the far left of the front three allows those 210s to operate in the space. It gives space for the players who, the guys that are chipping in now. Luke Cundle on loan from Wolves at 21, I think. Young lad who's really, he wasn't playing beginning of the season, but is playing well now. And Finn Azaz, I think he's got 3 goals, 3 assists. I don't know what Cundle's got, something similar. Mumba's got 2 goals, 2 assists. And so people are saying, maybe he could be doing a bit better, but he's on par for what he did last season. I think last year he got 6 goals, 7 assists. Now that was from fullback, but effectively it was fullback, but winger. He wasn't really asked to do too much defensively. So he allows the rest of the team to function. He and Morgan Whittaker stretch the fullbacks, pin the fullbacks, or the wing backs, even depending if we're playing against the back 5. They really give space for the number 10s the 210s to operate, but also for Houghton in the middle of the park, who's been a real revelation this season as a kind of single pivot to ping the ball between the lines. We do sort of like to play one touch from either the fullback or from one of the centre backs going wide into Houghton, and then he'll put a ball through for someone in the middle. We can keep hold of the ball. It's not like, if we don't transition quickly, we lose the ball. But Bali Mumba's brilliant at creating the space. He scares people. The number of times we've got Twitter from opposing fans saying, he's the best. He's the threat that we were worried about all afternoon. He was tormenting us down the left-hand side. And the other thing he does really well is cancelling the press, because he's so good with the ball at his feet that if he's coming back and covering his fullback, or even covering his winger, he can stand his man up, slow him up, stand him up, and then the press dies because everybody has to back off because his man's not going to get the better of him. If the press carries on, he'll skin his man and he's away. So when he's very effective for us at getting attacks going. He's got the longest distance of average carry in the team, even though his progression isn't the highest. And that's because he'll get the ball and he'll sort of stand his man up. He'll sell him a couple of lollipops. He'll come inside, and that's cancelled the press. They've dropped back, and then we can start building the attack. So he's incredibly effective. Is almost like an attack is the best form of defense kind of a role. And he does tend to do more defensively, quite a bit more defensively than our other forward players, other than maybe Azaz and Kundal do muck in more from the wings when they have to, but certainly I think I'd suggest more than Morgan Whittaker. Although Morgan Whittaker is, he is the kind of the crown jewel in the attacking setup at the minute. But yeah, he really is a bit of a Swiss Army knife, and like I say, he's on course to replicate his attacking output from last season, there or thereabouts. So I don't understand any qualms about his performances. He's like I say, he's in the top 20 in the league. If I read you the top 20 for creative chances or carries leading to creative chances, Steffi Mavididi, Morgan Whittaker, who's obviously Argyle player, your Jack Clark, Somerville, Chair, Philogene, Delap, Dan James, Ruter, Johnny Rowe, Gabriel Sara, Wes Burns, Bali Mumba, Ellis Sims, Finn Azaz, Sammy Schmodix, Isaiah Jones, Josh Karoma, and then Ryan Hardy. So we've got 4 of those, but he's up there in some exalted company. So for anybody who sort of thinks he's not a threat or he's not doing much this season, just look at those numbers. He drags people everywhere, and it's his work off the ball. The team's really good. They've developed really good understandings, the front 3 and 5 as it is now. Finn Azaz scored a cracking goal against Borough, but it's a little flick from Bali Mumba, a little back heel flick, and then he runs and takes 2 men with him. And just as a third defender is going to step out, Morgan Whittaker makes a run round behind him just to stand the man still, and it gives room for Azaz to whip them. Obviously, he still has to hit the shot, but that's the sort of work that sometimes you're not going to get an assist for that. But his work off the ball just terrifies defenders and makes space for those midfielders with the other creative players in the team to do their thing. And if people let him go, then if there's a little through ball that he can put away, which again, a goal against Borough just the other day exemplifies. He got a goal. It was a lovely team move, and someone let him go, move towards the ball between the lines, between the defenders, and he's in and taps it in the corner, which people are playing. I think part of the reason he's not had the output is same as people are expecting, maybe since he's moved further up the pitch, is because people are giving him so much respect. There's times when he's doubled up on, and in this league, you're not just going to dance past 2 quality defenders, but that gives room for the rest of the team to produce, and we've got really good production now out of our 2 number 10s. So he's doing excellently for the team, even if he hasn't got the statistical returns. His ratings still, if you look at the metrics, he's still top 3, 4 player in the team every week. So he's doing really well for us. Can't believe we got him. And when we got him and Whittaker back on permanence, what we got, there's no one would have dreamed that was possible. And yes, we had them last season, but they are effectively new signings. Mm-hmm. And without them, I don't think we'd be looking half as optimistic or as effective as we are. That he's been an absolutely key component of us being able to do what we do.
One player that is definitely not going to play on Saturday, I'd be very surprised if he did, but it's probably worth mentioning as Jay Matete. Obviously, he got injured in pre-season for us, so he's not really featured. I think he's closing in on a return, but he was a player who made it 2 promotions from 2, obviously with us through the playoffs, and then you winning the league. It felt like Bali Mumba got a lot of plaudits. Obviously, when you look at these numbers, that's understandable. But how did Jay do down at Plymouth?
Excellently. I mean, I think he liked to put himself about, and we could do with a bit of that. Like I was just saying, he would fit right. I mean, I don't know if he's got the same brain as Houghton, but we didn't necessarily think Houghton had until this season. We sort of see what he's doing, and so if when he comes back, if he's surplus to requirements, then send him our way. It's not but yeah, I think I can't remember his disciplinary record off the top of my head, but he was sort of quite every time he got his customary yellow sort of every time he played. But that's what you need, I think, sometimes when you're trying to be expansive, and we're doing that even more this year, really, than we were last, ironically. So, I think everybody was pleased with Matete, and I think he's definitely got qualities that we could use in the squad right now, as an option at least. But yeah, he's highly thought of down here, and I think everybody would welcome him back into the squad if he was available on a loan or even on a permanent. I think that he'd actually be. I mean, you've already got a great midfielder sort of sitting in front of the back four right now, which he'd have to try and displace. So, I mean, yes, he's a great squad option, but I don't know if you will be looking at him permanently. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but you've got a team full of athletes. I look at your team. I mean, 2 games I've watched you guys play. One was Wednesday, which you can't really tell much from, except it looked like the year 10s playing against the year 7s or something, and Jack Clark was just a training session. And then the other game was the one the other day. I watched the first hour against Birmingham. Was it Birmingham? And like the first 20 minutes, I was just like, you guys are, if you said like, give me the prototypical footballer, everyone's sort of like 5'10", 5'11", fast, good close control. Your team is, you've got a few outliers, obviously, some lads who are bigger, but some who are sort of slightly, was it Roberts out on the wing? He's slightly smaller and tricky or whatever, but generally you've just got a team of athletes. So I don't think you'd have other players I think it would fit in there. So I don't know if he's got a future with you guys or not. I'm sure he will hope so, because I think that's a great team to be playing in for a very good manager and a great club. But if he's not going to be short of suitors, I don't think. If it was to go away, he's a lot more than just a destroyer, I think. But he was great at that for us. He's not afraid of the dirty work, and I think we could do with a bit of that right now.
The funny one was Matete. I'm not really sure where he fits in with. I kind of forget what he's like. It's been that long since he's played for us. I think he would have probably featured a bit more this season, but injury in pre-season, and he's been out since. I suppose you've kind of answered it in a way, but I guess with all due respect, Sunderland's ambitions, because of how we performed last season and because of where we are in the league at this season, is to make it beyond the Championship. So we're looking at high-end Championship midfielders. Do you think Matete has what it takes to be a top 6 Championship midfielder, or from what you've seen of him, would you see him more as someone who can fit into the Championship, but maybe not at the higher end?
Yeah, probably, but then you never know with a lot of players until you try, and players develop, and some players suit systems. Some players are excellent in certain roles and not necessarily as flexible as others. Some players will give you a 7 out of 10 performance, whatever team you put them in. And some teams, they need to play, some players rather need to play in a team that plays a certain way. So, honestly, he probably has the potential, but you'd have to play him and develop him, I think, to reach it. And it's, like anybody with potential, you see so many wonder kids go by the wayside, don't we? Who's the next this and the next that. So, he's at a stage of his career, I think, where he needs to be playing, and it needs to be, not developing, but he needs it. You can't invest too much more in him. You need to be getting performances out of him. So I think it'd be a case of, is he going to fit in now and perform for Sunderland? If not, then he's probably surplus to requirements. But I wouldn't be able to. Your guess is as good as mine as to whether he would do that. I think I don't see anybody in your team on thinking, oh, he's going to get in there ahead of him or in that position. So in that sense, no. I think you guys are looking at, I had you pegged for sort of top 6 at the start of the season. I don't know what you thought you were aiming for or what your hopes are, what your aims are now at this point, whether that's changed or not. But I still think you've got a very good shot at top 6. So does he fit into a top 6 team? As in, does he walk back in when he's fit? Probably not. But then I don't know what's gone on. How has he developed? What's he been picking up? How has he been adapting to? Because you play a different system to us. So what's he done in the back? When he sits in training, as he demonstrating he's understanding what's asked of him by the manager, he might fit your system a lot better than ours. He's got that athletic ability that suits your style of play. He can pass, he can tackle. He's that all round athlete that suits your selection at the minute. So your guess is as good as mine. He certainly could do, but. He's got a lot of decent players to displace if he's going to.
Last but not least, because we have about a minute left here, because I don't pay for the Zoom upgrade yet, as always, because times are tough. Prediction, Ben, before I let you go.
Oh, I'm going to say 2-2. 2-2.
Do you know what? That's weird. I'm actually going to stick with you on that. I'm also going to say 2-2. I would hope for more, obviously, but looking at the home form, looking at the goals you've scored, yeah, 2-2 seems about right. But hopefully more for us. I hope you have a horrible weekend, Ben, as always. But thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry I waffled on quite a bit. That's my tendency. But cheers for having me. Myself.
I liked it. And if someone didn't, that's just tough.
Take it easy, mate.
You too.